which allows agencies to combine their resources to support transportation research studies. So thanks for joining me for this webinar. So we at the Center for Health and Safety Culture, we're an interdisciplinary center serving communities and organizations through research, training, and guidance to cultivate healthy and safe cultures. And we conduct research into the definition, measurement, and transformation of culture relevant to various health and safety issues. Our research is based in theories from psychology and sociology and anthropology that address the role of culture in individual and organizational decision-making. Virtually all the research that we do is conducted in partnerships with various community, state, national, and international organizations who are seeking to improve health and safety using cultural strategies. Here is just a visual map of our projects. We take research and we put it into practice internationally, nationally, at the state and local levels. And our current research projects address a variety of issues, but our four main focus areas are traffic safety, substance abuse, child well-being, and violence prevention. And these issues overlap, and collectively they are the top issues when we address overall well-being and years of potential life lost. So during our time today, I'm going to talk about a concept called safety citizenship. We'll talk about what safety citizenship is, the theoretical foundation for the concept and how it was developed, and we'll discuss how the concept originated in fields other than traffic safety. We're then going to discuss how safety citizenship can be applied to traffic safety, and we'll discuss the traffic safety culture survey that we conducted to really better understand the values, attitudes, and beliefs associated with safety citizenship behavior. And then finally, we'll spend some time talking about what we learned that can really inform how we grow these beliefs in communities. And I'll leave some time at the end for questions as well. Safety is a major concern in high-risk industries because there's a large cost to not only individuals, but also the company when any kind of accident or injury occurs. When looking at safety incidents and injuries, research has consistently shown us that human error is a leading cause. And because there's a huge burden that's placed on organizations, there's been a large emphasis of organizations to try and reduce their risks by establishing really good safety management practices and procedures in their companies. The traditional approach to safety has been to look at things like mechanical problems or equipment failures, and then to develop safety policies and procedures around those issues. So, for example, conducting equipment inspections on a regular basis, or using personal protective equipment to safeguard individuals. And although these strategies are really important, organizations have found that those strategies alone aren't enough. People's behavior and attitudes govern really how they identify risks and then also how they address safety. So in focusing on equipment and policies and procedures that address safety, many organizations have also tried to improve their safety efforts by increasing compliance or establishing rules and regulations and then implementing consequences for not following those rules or regulations. But again, researchers and organizations quickly realized that compliance in and of itself is also not sufficient to minimize the risks associated with safety, and that individuals need to really be proactive in dealing with safety. So with increasing pressure from organizations to establish safe working environments for their employees, organizations were really in search of something new. They wanted to look for ways that they could bolster proactive safety behaviors of their employees so that employees would initiate safety improvements on their own. And these proactive behaviors have been what we call safety citizenship behaviors. There are multiple ways to define safety citizenship behavior. The most recognized in the research is that first definition: behaviors that are discretionary, not directly or explicitly recognized by the formal reward system, and that in aggregate promote the effective functioning of the organization. But more simply, it's really acts of people that go beyond one's formally prescribed duties. It's a proactive approach to risk management. And safety citizenship behavior really allows employees to use their own discretion with respect to safety of their work, and that in turn is likely to increase their safety consciousness. Citizenship behavior, when it was developed, really has a strong theoretical foundation. The concept of citizenship behavior is based on the principle of reciprocity, which really simply means that if an employee will tend to reciprocate and enhance his or her relationships with supervisors and leaders of an organization when that employee feels valued. They go above and beyond what's expected of them. So social exchange theory suggests to us that employees have an obligation or a perceived obligation to reciprocate and increase their own efforts when they perceive that they're receiving a benefit from their leaders or from their organization. So an example of that is when an organization, for example, demonstrates that it's concerned for its employees, it creates safe working conditions, then employees feel protected, and then they in turn will reciprocate by increasing their own efforts. And one way to increase their efforts is to engage in these citizenship behaviors where they go above and beyond what's normally required of them in their job. So when employees feel cared for in a highly supportive environment, they will reciprocate. They'll go above and beyond. But the social norm of reciprocity, interestingly, also goes the other way. So in low supportive environments or where employees have really a low sense of quality relationships with their organization or with their leaders, they might actually withhold their efforts in an attempt to really maintain that balance of social exchange. So social exchange theory is one of the foundations that citizenship behavior is based on. The other is called role definition or discretion. And essentially what that means is that how we define our role in any given situation and whether we believe whatever the behavior we're doing is part of our job or is it discretionary? So it's up to me whether I decide to do that, whatever behavior that is. So it's really a subjective assessment. Some behaviors to one employee might be considered required, like, yeah, that's just part of my job, where to another employee that particular behavior might be discretionary or thought of as discretionary. So those are the theoretical foundations of citizenship behavior. Safety citizenship behavior was originally developed by modifying various organizational citizenship behaviors. And safety citizenship behavior is described as prosocial behavior, and it's really manifested in a variety of different actions that go above and beyond one's own safety, really to support the safety of other people. And some of those things include like voicing opinions, intervening to help other people, reporting unsafe situations, staying informed, initiating change, and also being a steward for existing safety programs. And these behaviors collectively are what make up safety citizenship behavior. Some of you might be familiar with the term bystander engagement. That's an example of safety citizenship behavior. The essence of bystander engagement is that a person will get involved in a situation or an event when he or she thinks the issue is in need of some urgent intervention. And bystander engagement has been researched in the literature addressing a variety of different issues, from dating violence, child maltreatment. Also, it's been looked at in traffic safety-related issues like drinking and driving. And bystander engagement is really just an example of a safety citizenship behavior. So what motivates people to engage in safety citizenship behavior? research shows that there's lots of different reasons people engage in safety citizenship, but they can really be categorized into 3 themes: at the individual level, the group level, and then also at the organizational level. So a person might decide to engage in safety citizenship behavior at the individual level just for sheer self-preservation, right? People want to go home from their work environments or they want to be safe. They want to feel safe, and they don't want to hurt themselves. So this self-interest or individual motivation might be a reason that people engage in safety citizenship behavior. And that really fits well with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, too, where security is a basic human instinct, and we want to protect ourselves from harm and danger. And so that's an important drive of just basic human behavior. At the group level, a person might decide to engage in safety citizenship from a peer pressure perspective. It's been found that peer pressure can motivate us to, or influence kind of the group level culture and motivate us to engage in safety citizenship. And then the third theme is really at the organizational level. And safety culture is expressed in our attitudes and our beliefs and our values the organization has. It acts as a prescription for the way employees should work. Examples of a safety culture might be, safety is mentioned in meetings, or there's a focus on safety in just regular conversation in an organization. And essentially what that's telling us is that just the environment alone that values safety and incorporates that into the daily working environment can encourage employees to then take initiative and improve safety on their own. But safety citizenship behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's been found that these behaviors are either encouraged or they're discouraged by the culture. So just having given you just a background on safety citizenship behavior, I now want to move us in a direction of how safety citizenship behavior really applies to traffic safety. So if we look at traffic safety, it's actually followed a very similar pattern to organizations, similar to those high-risk industries, where safety in transportation, in the transportation field, is also really an important issue to address. Traffic crashes and injuries can have devastating consequences. And safety is a major concern, and so many resources have really been extended to improve safety in the traffic safety field. The transportation field has followed a similar path to organizations as to how they've addressed safety. So in traffic safety, we've worked to improve road design. We've looked at vehicle manufacturing companies, and they've incorporated many safety features into vehicles in an attempt to reduce risk and to reduce harm associated with traffic crashes. The field of transportation has also attempted to improve safety through compliance by enacting traffic laws. Speed limit laws and seatbelt laws are examples of implementing compliance-based strategies. Where, as a road user, if I decide not to wear my seatbelt and I get pulled over, I have to face the consequences for not complying with that established rule. So similar to organizations, the field of transportation has also recognized that those compliance-based strategies and safer roads and equipment safety is essential, but that human error continues to be a leading cause of safety incidents and injuries. So much of the literature on safety citizenship behavior has used measures that we've adapted from the original work of Hoffman, Morgenstern, and Gera. But really, little research was found that specifically looked at safety citizenship in contexts other than organizations. So when we were expanding this concept into traffic safety, we needed to look at other similar concepts. We looked at different in the literature. So we looked at things like extra role behaviors and organizational commitment. We looked at social capital and psychological capital and various other constructs that were similar to safety citizenship. And through that work, we developed a definition of traffic safety citizenship behaviors. And this is what we came up with. So traffic safety citizenship behaviors are discretionary, extra role behaviors that together contribute to the individual and collective safety of all road users. So let me give you an example of using seatbelts. So using that traditional approach, our goal is to get individuals to wear their seatbelts. And towards that goal, we've done ads about seatbelts. We have laws that require us to wear seatbelts. We also have law enforcement enforcing those laws, all in an effort to get individuals to wear a seatbelt. And when we think about this issue through a safety citizenship lens, now the issue is, how do I get a person to get someone else to wear a seatbelt? So we think about it like this. How do I get my spouse to wear a seatbelt? How do I get my child to wear a seatbelt, or my parents, or my coworkers? And this is a clearly different strategy. Other issues are going on here. So first, we know for seatbelt use that most people do wear seatbelts. We also have an idea that those who don't wear seatbelts may not do it on their own. So if we're going to reach that small, difficult-to-reach group, we need to think about doing it in a different way. And that's what the safety citizenship approach is all about. Growing traffic safety citizenship by everyone is really a strategic shift, which focuses on engaging the larger majority of safe road users to influence the behaviors of a really smaller risk group. We wanted to get a better understanding of the concept of safety citizenship behavior in the field of traffic safety, which led us to our work to develop a traffic safety culture survey on traffic safety citizenship. And that's what I'll talk about now. The traffic safety culture survey on traffic safety citizenship that I'm going to talk about was sponsored by the Traffic Safety Culture Pooled Fund. So I just put some information up there regarding our research sponsor. The objective of the Traffic Safety Culture Survey on Citizenship was to understand the core beliefs and attitudes about traffic safety that influence engagement by road users in an effort to improve traffic safety. And the purpose of our research was focused on 4 areas. We wanted to define prosocial traffic safety behaviors that would reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries. We wanted to measure their prevalence among U.S. adults. We wanted to identify cultural factors that were predictive of these behaviors, and then propose methods of increasing traffic safety citizenship based on the identified cultural factors. With the results of the survey, we wanted to identify important values to leverage in order to change critical attitudes and beliefs to grow safety citizenship behaviors in traffic safety, and to really provide us information that would lead to interventions that would to promote engagement by individuals that would impact the behaviors of others. So our first task to understand traffic safety citizenship behavior was to create a survey, and we used a complex behavior model to develop our survey question. Having a model really provides us with an empirical basis of how beliefs and behaviors predict other beliefs and behaviors. It helps us to understand what we need to grow and to inform us about things we need to change. So here's a slide of the complex behavioral model that we used to develop the survey. There are several validated behavioral models that have already been established in prior research. Examples include like the value beliefs norm theory, the reasoned action approach, the prototype willingness model, and features of those different behavioral models were combined into this augmented integrated behavioral model that relates values and beliefs to behaviors. And I wanted to show you these next few slides to show you our process. We use science to inform every aspect of our project. And this behavioral model illustrates that together, values, attitudes, and beliefs, and willingness and intention influence behavior. We can't get people to behave in a certain way. They have to choose to behave. So behavior is a choice. And really the takeaway message is that in order to change behavior, efforts need to focus on changing beliefs. While we used every aspect of the model as we developed our survey, I want to spend a few minutes just looking at beliefs. And we can talk about three different kinds of beliefs: behavioral beliefs, normative beliefs, and control beliefs. So behavioral beliefs are a person's expectations about engaging in a behavior, and those expectations inform our attitudes. We can look at it like this. So what's in it for me if I engage in a certain behavior? For example, if we use an example like exercise, I might have a belief that if I exercise, I'm going to feel better. And this is an example of a positive expectancy of engaging in exercise or in that behavior. We can also not only have positive expectancies about a behavior, but we can also have negative expectancies, like I don't like to get all sweaty when I exercise. So any behavior that we can talk about, and we can switch and talk about various ones, but they usually have both positive and some negative expectancies. And we weigh those and develop an attitude about the behavior. And those will influence to what degree we decide to engage in a behavior. Behavioral beliefs are our beliefs about a specific behavior. We can also have that next group is normative beliefs. And normative beliefs are an individual's perception of what is common or expected about a behavior by a specific group of people. There are two different kinds of normative beliefs: injunctive and descriptive. Injunctive normative beliefs are those people who are important to me expect me to exercise. That's an example. So important people might be my doctor expects me to exercise, or my spouse expects me to exercise, or my friend. Different groups who expect me to engage or not engage in a particular behavior. What we believe to be common or typical are called descriptive normative beliefs. So an example would be most people like me exercise regularly. Normative beliefs inform our sense of perceived norms, and it's another set of beliefs that will influence our behaviors. And then that third group of beliefs are called control beliefs. And control beliefs are an individual's perception of his or her ability to engage or not engage in a behavior in a specific circumstance. It includes a variety of factors like whether or not we have the resources to do the behavior, the knowledge, our ability, or our sense of whether we can or can't do something. Control beliefs include the belief that it's up to me. For example, if I really wanted to, I could walk 20 minutes every day. Or I might want to do yoga, but I don't know how. So this is an example of a control belief that might limit my ability to engage in the behavior because I lack the knowledge. These three different kinds of beliefs influence behavior. And as we developed the Traffic Safety Citizenship Survey, we used this behavioral model. So we administered the Traffic Safety Citizenship Survey in two different ways. We used a mailed survey and an online version. The online version was really included to bolster the responses from younger adults who are often underrepresented in mailed surveys. There was a total of 3,200 households that were contacted using our mailed survey. A total of 694 surveys were returned to us, giving us an overall response rate of 24.4%. So for the internet survey, we used Qualtrics as our survey platform, and a panel was purchased from Qualtrics of individuals 18 years and older who resided in the U.S. And we received 1,260 respondents from the internet survey. We also did a pilot version of the survey that we implemented with a small internet sample, and the final version of our survey was refined based on the results of our pilot test. The survey focused on two different traffic safety citizenship behaviors: asking someone to wear a seatbelt and asking the driver to refrain from reading or typing on a cell phone while driving. Engagement in these behaviors were examined in the context of 4 different social relationships: with a family member, with a friend, with an acquaintance or coworker, and with a stranger. So we first wanted to know who responded to the survey. So we looked at our survey respondents and compared them to the general population. We looked at gender and age, geographical area of where they live, education, and alcohol use. And overall, more females responded to the survey than males. Respondents tended to be older and more educated than the general population. Weights were developed to align distributions of gender and age with general population estimates. And then the proportion of respondents from rural areas was higher than the general population. But overall, we believe that we had a pretty representative sample. Next, we wanted to know if people are engaging in traffic safety citizenship behavior. And the answer is yes, that they are. Overall, about half of the respondents indicated that they'd been in a situation in the past 12 months when a family member, a close friend, or acquaintance or coworker was either not wearing their seatbelt or was reading on or typing on a cell phone while driving. So this represents a significant number of opportunities where an individual could intervene to improve traffic safety. Among those in a situation to intervene, most people, more than half, reported that they did intervene to ask someone to wear a seatbelt. And interestingly, the levels of intervening decreased as social distance grew. So fewer intervened with strangers than they did with their close family member or close friends or family members. And we saw a similar pattern for intervening with a driver who was reading or typing on a cell phone while driving. So the takeaway message is that there are a meaningful number of people who reported being in a situation to intervene. So we know that intervening is taking place. It isn't everyone, but we know that intervening, and we also know that intervening decreases as social distance grows, which means that maybe we aren't sure if intervening is acceptable or not. We then wanted to know if a person's gender and age and education or geographical areas of where they lived influenced their, whether or not that influenced whether they engaged in traffic safety citizenship behaviors. And we didn't find any differences in these demographics and their influence on intervening on seatbelts or on typing or reading on a cell phone while driving. So one of the objectives of this study was to explore how culture impacts traffic safety citizenship behaviors. And because we were interested in growing intervening behaviors in all the social situations, we were interested in the beliefs of individuals about intervening and not factors that might influence whether they were in situations to intervene. So we restricted our analysis to those who had been in a situation to intervene. And then we further divided those who were in a situation into two groups. The two groups were those who reported intervening half the time or less, and those who intervened more than half the time. And then we looked across all the social relationships. So first, let's look at seatbelt use and what we found about intervening on seatbelts. To better understand how the shared values, beliefs, and attitudes varied between those groups who were more likely to intervene and those who were not, the means for each group were compared. And this graph shows a pattern of how the two groups, those that intervened half the time or more and those that intervened less than half the time, how they differ. This graph shows the average for the components that we measured on the survey. And the bars on the graph indicate the average value for each group with a 95% confidence level. So you can see that the level of protection increases from left to right. So for example, willingness to intervene increases from left to right because intervening is a protective behavior. When the bar of one group overlaps the bar of another group, the means are not statistically significant, statistically different. It's important to note that the averages for intervening behavior for each of the two groups were at the extremes. That is, people tended to either report never intervening or always intervening. And I think this is noteworthy because their beliefs don't differ drastically, except for descriptive norms and to a lesser degree perceived control. So both groups indicated they had high levels of willingness to intervene. They had similar levels of attitudes. They had very positive attitudes towards intervening. They had a sense of approval to intervene and a sense of support and beliefs that they should intervene. However, their perceptions of what most other people do were significantly different. And while both groups reported a sense of comfort and confidence to intervene, there were differences here too. And so we'll discuss those differences in more detail in just a minute. I wanted to show you also intervening on texting. So this graph looks at intervening on reading or typing on a cell phone. And for reading or typing on a cell phone, we found that, again, willingness and perceived descriptive norms were the best predictors of intervening behaviors. But we also found that perceived norms and perceived control were correlated with willingness when all the other components were held constant. So I want to focus on descriptive norms and perceived control because we found some interesting information, and I think that this will help us to take what we learned in the research and apply it to our communities. So first, let's talk about descriptive norms. Descriptive norms are beliefs about what is typical among others, so what most people do. And this figure specifically looks at how often people think most other people, drivers and passengers, ask people to wear a seatbelt. And what we see is that the two groups, those that intervened half the time or less and those that intervened half the time or more, had significantly different perceptions about what most people do. So those who rarely intervened perceived that most other people intervene less than half the time. Those that intervened often perceived that most other people intervene more than half the time. So in both groups, we found that their perception was that fewer people intervened as social distance grew. So both groups perceived that fewer people intervened with strangers than they did with their family members. Of all the beliefs measured, descriptive norms were the most correlated with intervening behavior. We see a similar result when we look at how often people think most other people ask others to stop reading or typing on a cell phone while driving. And what we see is that the two groups, those that intervened half the time or less and those that intervened more than half the time, had significantly different perceptions, again, about what most people do. Those that rarely intervened regarding cell phone use perceived that most other people intervened less than half the time. And then again, those that intervened often thought that most other people also intervened more than half the time. And then again, in both groups, their perception was that fewer people intervened as social distance grew. So what this tells us is that we need to build a culture where people know most people would intervene, and we need to build a sense that people have permission to intervene. In our communities, we need to clarify norms and grow the perception that speaking up is normal. Next, I want to focus on perceived control. So even if people have a positive attitude about a behavior, they believe that they should engage in a behavior, and they believe that most people engage in a behavior, they might not feel comfortable or confident to complete that behavior. The survey measured comfort and confidence to intervene for each of the 4 social relationships. This graph looks at seatbelts, and you can see both comfort and confidence were different among the two groups. For example, the average for comfort to intervene with a family member was 5.9 and 6.7 for those who intervene less than half the time and those that intervene more than half the time. Further, comfort and confidence decrease as social distance grows. So although both comfort and confidence decrease, they decrease more for those who are less likely to intervene. This graph looks at people's comfort and confidence to ask others to refrain from reading or typing on a cell phone. And again, you can see that both comfort and confidence were different among the two groups. And like we saw for asking others to wear a seatbelt, comfort and confidence decrease as social distance grows, which makes sense that people are more comfortable intervening with people that they're closer to. I think the takeaway message here is that bolstering comfort and confidence may be an important strategy in developing interventions increase intervening behaviors. We want to build a culture where, in our communities, where people know how to intervene, they have permission to intervene, and they feel comfortable and confident to do it. We also wanted to explore in this survey people's support for traffic safety strategies. And we looked at 6 different traffic safety strategies, and we asked the respondents to what degree they supported each of the strategies to increase seatbelt use or decrease texting while driving. We looked at their support for a primary seatbelt laws, for workplace policies requiring seatbelts, family rules about seatbelts, a primary law banning reading or typing on a cell phone, a workplace policy banning reading or typing on a cell phone, and a similar family rule. And we found in our analysis that there is strong support for all 6 of those traffic safety strategies. Most respondents to the survey chose either a 6 or a 7 out of 7 for support. To understand the difference between those who strongly support these strategies and others, the respondents were divided into 2 groups. Those that strongly supported all 6 strategies, so they reported a 7 out of 7 on the scale for all strategies, and then those that indicated moderate or less support, so they responded like a 4 or less on average across all the strategies. And this graph shows that the averages for each group, so strong support versus less strong support for each component on the survey. And this graph shows that the means of intervening behaviors and beliefs are different for the 2 groups for each component of the survey. Overall, those with less support for strategies intervened less often and had beliefs that were less supportive of intervening. However, these differences aren't large, which really aligns with the fact that most respondents at least moderately support strategies. Nonetheless, the results did suggest an association between intervening beliefs and behaviors and support for policy strategies. So based on this survey, there were some important takeaway ideas that we can use to bolster traffic safety citizenship in our communities. First, there are opportunities to intervene with others. About half of the people who responded to our survey indicated that they'd been in a situation where someone was either not wearing their seatbelt or was reading or typing while driving. And of those who indicated they were in the situation to intervene, more than half of them did. Second, we know that people are more likely to intervene with individuals who are socially closer to them, like family members or friends, than to those who are more socially distanced, like acquaintances or strangers. So this establishes an important opportunity to improve traffic safety, because if more people choose to intervene, even with strangers, then the prevalence of risky behaviors could be reduced. Third, overall, most people had favorable attitudes and beliefs about intervening. And what this tells us is that we don't need to focus a lot of our efforts to grow attitudes or injunctive norms supportive of intervening. They already exist. Instead, it appears that people do need to learn that intervening is typical. The perception of whether most people do intervene was the greatest predictor of intervening behavior. So if we think other people intervene in similar situations, that makes us more likely to intervene ourselves. We also learned that a person's sense of comfort and confidence to intervene matters. A comparison of those who intervene more often compared to those who intervened less revealed some significant differences in their sense of comfort and confidence to intervene. If a person is comfortable intervening and feels confident to intervene, they're more likely to then intervene. So people need guidance on how to do it successfully, really to bolster their comfort and confidence. Based on the survey results, we recommend developing interventions that will bolster a person's comfort and confidence to engage in those protective behaviors, and then also to grow the perception that speaking up is typical. An intervention is really an intentional experience designed to change beliefs, and interventions can be a variety of things. So it might be in driver's education programs, we do role-playing or other experiential activities, education campaigns. But really, the specific belief that we want to address should be that most people will ask someone to wear a seatbelt or not read or type on a cell phone when driving. And examples can be provided then to teach people how to intervene to make them feel successful. So this will increase comfort and confidence. We also learned that those who are more likely to intervene and have more favorable attitudes and beliefs about intervening are more supportive of strategies. So therefore, we recommend efforts should be coupled with policy strategies that include things like primary laws, workplace policies, and family rules. This survey revealed that most people do support these strategies, and so establishing laws and policies and rules can really create a context across the social environment that empowers people to act when they see someone else violating the policy or engaging in a risky behavior. Elected officials and community and workplace leaders and families, we want to inform them, they need to be informed of support for policies and rules that support traffic safety. Policies coupled with training on how to intervene when someone witnesses a risky behavior may increase traffic safety citizenship and also create a stronger context to support intervening behaviors and ultimately to improve traffic safety. So now I want to leave some time for questions, and my colleagues from the Center for Health and Safety Culture have also joined the webinar, so they're here too to answer any questions that you have about what we learned or the survey or recommendations for applying what we learned in our community at the community level. So let's open it up for questions now.
So I have gotten a question asking if the slides will be available after. We usually offer the webinar in our webinar archive, so you will be able to review them while you listen to the webinar.
I also put up here a slide just to learn more if you're interested in the traffic safety citizenship survey that we did and our findings. You can find it here on the Traffic Safety Culture Pooled Fund, so you can visit MDT's website. I also put up our Center for Health and Safety Culture website and Facebook and Twitter. So there's some more resources for you too.
I'm also getting another question. Carrie, do you think it would be important to eliminate using the word accident as a means to change perception?
I do. I think that I think that more and more things are moving, especially in the research, from accidents to crashes. So traffic crashes. I do think that language is important. So yeah, I do. Other colleagues from the Center for Health and Safety Culture that have other ideas about that or want to weigh in?
All right, Carrie, we have another question from Dr. Ward. If we see greater engagement with people closer to us compared to strangers, is there any way to create strategies so that more people are seen to be part of the community, friends versus strangers?
I do. I think there is. I think we do need to look at strategies that could help us to do that, because if we can just get people to engage also with strangers where they feel more comfortable doing that, there's a greater likelihood that they will. So yeah, absolutely. I think that we should look at ways or strategies that we can create that sense of, it's okay to do it. It's typical to do it with everyone, and to grow that comfort and confidence to do it. Absolutely.
So this is Jay chiming in. I think you can hear me. I'm in a slightly noisy environment, so hopefully it's not too loud. We are engaged in a project on exploring this also on distracted driving, and actually trying to explore with some other folks helping us, some media and creative folks, to explore what could be language or words or different ways that we could use that we could then use some mass media to sort of teach people what this could look like, and making that language not confrontational or insulting, and normalize the language. And I think that can also be a mechanism to help increasing that intervention, especially as social distance grows, especially when you have an environment where maybe you have a sense that multiple people are hearing that same language being used. Then it's not so strange for that individual to speak up to somebody who maybe is more socially distant, because there's a sense that that other person may have heard or know about that same language. So that'll be something to explore, and this has certainly been some work that's gone on. Certainly that takes place in a workplace environment, so everybody in the workplace environment has the same training, so that makes the language more acceptable. But then thinking about this at the community level is where we'd like to try to explore it. Some of this has been done in college environments around aspects of violence, and so getting more and more folks trained in the college environment about what that language looks like makes it easier to use that language maybe on a greater social distance. But that's certainly an area of active research, and we're very interested to explore that in a current project.
Great. So we have another question from Cassandra Allen. I work on the Navajo Nation within Chinle Service Unit Indian Health Service, and I am looking for measures, and I think your confidence and comfort measures are helpful. Are there any other measures that can show if what we are doing makes a difference?
I think this is Jay again. I think that's a great question. I think we might need to have a greater conversation to look at some of the specific behaviors that you're seeking to address, and then some of the beliefs that you may have found are predictive of those behaviors. So going back to Carrie introduced that behavioral model, and that behavioral model gives us guidance to help reveal which beliefs are associated or correlated with the behaviors we're addressing, and then what the various prevalence of those beliefs are. So that helps us understand which beliefs we feel like are the ones we need to address to influence behavior, and then we can hone in on those and see how various interventions start to influence those. But it may be that comfort and confidence is something that's relevant to the behaviors you're seeking to do. We see that coming up often in intervention, where it's a more sophisticated behavior. For example, we don't see comfort or confidence being relevant for a behavior just like me wearing my own seatbelt. That doesn't take a lot of comfort and confidence, so it's just not salient. So it really depends on the behavior, and maybe we could check in with you to look at more of that. But each behavior would have a different, potentially a different set of beliefs associated with it. So it really depends.
Thanks, Jay. So we have another question from Dr. Ward. Is there a role for early child education to help create the skills and beliefs and the value of intervening to protect the safety of others? For example, developing a sense of altruism, social responsibility, etc.
I think that's very true, and this is certainly something that is done in schools as strategies to address bullying. So it's and children are often very good at this. They're very protective of their friends, and so creating an environment where if a child sees another child being bullied, they speak up, or they go get help from an adult, but they don't ignore it, and they feel more empowered to address it in different ways. So it certainly comes up there, and I think it's an interesting idea to continue that and grow that to a wide variety. So, we're also involved with some work to explore how we can grow bystander engagement with adolescents around dating violence. So maybe it's bullying behaviors with younger children and as well as older youth, but then we also want to bring that up in terms of dating violence and things like that, and then obviously carrying that up into college environments and hopefully extending it beyond violence, but also thinking about traffic safety. But I think there are opportunities to begin addressing those beliefs and behaviors with children.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to learn more about traffic safety citizenship. I appreciate your taking the time, and have a great day.